I was just a country boy, trying to find my peace in the rolling hills of Tennessee. My grandfather's old farm was my sanctuary, where I could breathe in the fresh air and feel the earth beneath my feet. But one day, everything changed. Karen rolled up in her shiny silver Lexus, parking right on my land like it was a public parking spot. I marched up to her, my heart racing, and demanded she leave. "Hey!" I shouted. "This is private property." She looked at me like I was crazy, sipping on a Diet Coke like it was no big deal. "This isn't even real farmland," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's just dirt." I felt a fire ignite within me. How could she not see the beauty in this land? The way the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground? The way the air smelled of fresh earth and blooming wildflowers? But before I could respond, she dropped a bombshell. "I'm going to report you to the HOA," she said, a sly smile spreading across her face. "You're not even following their rules." My heart sank. I knew the HOA would jump at the chance to crack down on me, to force me to conform to their cookie-cutter standards. But I wasn't going down without a fight. "I'll take that risk," I said, standing my ground. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a battle that would take everything I had to win. Asterisk, asterisk, and then, just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, asterisk, asterisk. The sound of screeching tires echoed through the air, followed by the crunch of gravel beneath wheels. I turned to see a black SUV pulling up to the gate. Karen's Lexus parked in the middle of my field like it was a trophy. "What the—" I muttered, my eyes fixed on the driver's side window. A figure emerged from the SUV, dressed in a crisp suit and flashing a badge. "Good evening, sir," he said, his voice firm but polite. "I'm Agent Lewis with the Department of Environmental Management." My mind was racing. What did he want? And what did it have to do with Karen and her HOA antics? But before I could ask any questions, Agent Lewis dropped another bombshell. "Sir, we've received reports that your land may be involved in an illegal development conspiracy." My world came crashing down around me. Illegal development? Conspiracy? What was going on? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about Karen and her HOA. This was about something much bigger. Something that threatened everything I held dear. I felt a chill run down my spine as Agent Lewis handed me a folder full of documents and photographs. "Sir, we believe Karen may be part of a larger scheme to acquire land through improper means." My eyes scanned the papers, my mind reeling with the implications. This was bigger than I ever could have imagined. But as I looked up at Agent Lewis, I saw something in his eyes that gave me hope. "Sir, we're here to help you, and we're going to make sure justice is served." I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of determination course through my veins. It was time to take on Karen and her HOA once and for all. And with Agent Lewis by my side, I knew we were in this together. The battle for Thompson Acres had begun. I took a deep breath, clutching the folder filled with evidence against Karen, who had unwittingly tangled herself in something much larger than our petty feud. The air was thick with tension, and my heart pounded as I processed Agent Lewis's words. This wasn't just a squabble over parking or a tussle with an uptight neighbor. It was a fight against a hidden menace that threatened my family's legacy. Agent Lewis leaned closer, his voice lowering. "I believe you've been a target, Mr. Thompson. Karen isn't the only one involved. The HOA sees your land as a golden opportunity, a place for their development plans that would line their pockets and erase everything this farm stands for." I looked down at the photograph and documents that highlighted a disturbing pattern, forged signatures, dubious permits, and slides of vacant fields marked for construction. Every piece of paper felt like a weight crushing my chest. They had been plotting behind my back, and I had been naive to think I could simply ignore them. What do we do now? I asked, my grip on the folder tightening. Agent Lewis glanced around as if to ensure we were alone. "First, we gather more evidence. We need to show that this is systematic harassment, not just personal. Then we expose them, uncover their plans to the community." Expose them? I pondered. My mind raced back to the look on Karen's face when she had confronted me earlier, the arrogance swirling in her eyes. If they realize we're onto them, they'll escalate things. He nodded solemnly. "That's a risk we'll have to take. But we'll be prepared. I have a local friend with a popular YouTube channel. I said, an ember of hope igniting. If we can get this story out there, maybe the community will back me. Good idea, Agent Lewis replied, a spark of approval lighting his eyes. With enough public pressure, we can curb their plans before they escalate. But I need you to keep your head down for now. Don't antagonize Karen. She's furious, and desperate people are dangerous. I watched as he gathered the documents, his movements precise and deliberate. I couldn't shake the feeling that every second counted. Karen wouldn't take our confrontation lightly, and given her history, I could only imagine the lengths she would go to retaliate. A week passed as I carefully carried this heavy burden, all while pretending the farm was still a peaceful sanctuary. I resumed daily chores, focusing on planting and nurturing, yet the weight of Karen's looming threat lingered like a dark cloud. My surveillance cameras watched the property vigilantly, and I felt a strange mixture of paranoia and determination. Then, one night, as I was returning from the barn with a bucket of feed, I spotted movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow flitted at the edge of the woods, too quick to be a deer and seemingly cautious, like it didn't want to be seen. I froze, heart pounding in my chest, and instinctively reached for my phone to check the camera feed. Moments later, it lit up, showing a figure cloaked in darkness creeping along the tree line. I zoomed in, my heart racing, the unmistakable silhouette of a woman. I squinted, knowing in my gut it was Karen. Fueled by adrenaline, I bolted toward the edge of my property where I had last seen her. The figure darted, but I was determined not to lose her trail. As I reached the spot, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoed loudly in the stillness of the night. I rounded the corner, and my breath caught in my throat. She was on my land again, but this time she was up to something far worse. Karen was digging in a patch at the back of the barn, her hands coated in date. My anger flared. Was she sabotaging my crops? I stepped closer, careful to keep my footsteps quiet, but I couldn't just watch and do nothing. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" I shouted, my voice breaking through the night like thunder. She whipped around, eyes wide with surprise, but there was no mistaking the malice that colored her expression. This is none of your business," she stammered, but it was too late for her to play innocent. "What are you digging for?" I pressed, my voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. Before she could answer, a shimmer caught my eye. Was she hiding something? I could barely make it out in the dim light, but there, halfway buried in the soft earth, was a metal box. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to panic. "You need to leave. This is private property," she yelled, scrambling to cover her mistake. "Not anymore," I shot back, charging toward her. My instinct kicked in, propelling me forward to stop her before she could bury whatever secrets lay within that box. The ground crunched beneath my feet, and I lunged, grabbing her shoulder. With a sharp twist, I wrenched her away from the hole. "What else have you been hiding, Karen?" But she wasn't done running. With an unexpected burst of strength, she shoved me away and stumbled back, glancing toward the shadows around her. "You have no idea what you're getting into," she shrieked, eyes wild. "It doesn't matter what I know. This is about to end," I declared, resolutely staring her down. "Show me what you've got, or I swear I'll call the police." In that moment, something flickered in her eyes, fear or anger or both, as she seemed to weigh her options. Then she turned, bolting back toward the fence without a second glance, leaving me alone with a buried box that seemed to pulse with urgency. Heart pounding, I dropped to my knees and began to excavate the box, unearthing it from the soil. My fingers trembled as I pried it open, wondering what secrets it could hold. What if this was the proof I needed against Karen and her HOA gang? The lid creaked open, and as I peered inside, I gasped. There were documents, contracts, blueprints with my land squarely outlined, and something even more ominous, names of individuals listed alongside suggested payouts. This wasn't just sabotage, it was planned, methodical, and utterly sinister. My hands shook as I read the names. This wasn't merely a vendetta, it was a conspiracy that stretched far beyond my little farm, and Karen was right in the thick of it. The implication was clear. She wanted my land, and she wasn't about to stop until she got it. Every fiber of my being screamed that I now had a tangible weapon against her. I grinned, fueled by newfound resolve, and as I backed away from the graveyard of secrets, I could almost hear the whispers of the land urging me to stand tall and fight. This time, I wouldn't be the one forced into hiding. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to expose the truth. With the dawn of a new day ahead of me, I knew the fight for Thompson Acres was only just beginning, and I would confront whatever darkness lurked around the bend. As I stepped back from the metal box, adrenaline surged through me, coursing like wildfire. I clutched the plastic folder tightly in my hands, papers filled with names and plans that went far beyond Karen and her petty vendetta. This was proof of an orchestrated effort to wrest control not just from me, but from every landowner in the area. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting Karen to come charging back, but the night remained eerily still. Gripping the edges of the box, I carefully pulled the contents into the moonlight. Each contract and blueprint told a story, a clear plan woven through deceptive language and manipulated signatures. I was holding the threads of a conspiracy that could unravel everything. Just then, I heard rustling. My heart thumped loudly in my chest. Was it Karen again? No. This was a different sound, far too gentle, accompanied by the soft patter of little feet. Princess, her fluffy dog, appeared at the edge of the barn, looking lost and confused. I exhaled sharply, frustrated and relieved at the same time. "Get back, you little rascal," I muttered, trying to shoo her away. But she nosed at the ground anxiously, as if she sensed the tension hanging in the air. Unfazed, I began flipping through the documents again, scanning for anything concrete. The blueprints detailed a proposed development, a community center, luxury homes, a park where my fields once thrived. It was an attack on everything my grandfather worked for, and the HOA's greedy hands were all over it. Karen's not going to let this slide, I whispered to myself, the weight of my resolve hardening. I had to get this information to Agent Lewis, but I wanted to be smart about it. I couldn't risk another encounter with her tonight. No, I needed a plan. Just as I turned to leave, a sound echoed from the woods. A vehicle's engine revved faintly, drawing closer. My pulse quickened as I ducked back behind the barn, clutching the box to my chest. Was Karen somehow alerting her crew? I peered around the corner, scanning the driveway for headlights when the shapes began to take form in the darkness. Two shadowy figures emerged. They were moving stealthily, avoiding the path that led to the main house, heading toward the barn. My stomach twisted. I couldn't just stand by and watch. With urgency, I slipped behind the barn and crouched low, holding my breath. The figures were close now, their voices echoing softly. "Just grab it. We need to clear everything before Lo." "Shush! If someone sees us." I strained to hear more, my heart raced, disrupting the quiet of the night. The first voice belonged to one of Karen's cronies, a man I'd seen at the HOA meetings. The second voice sent chills down my spine. It was a rough, unfamiliar tone. "We can't let him find out," he stressed, tension crackling in the air. "The next phase of the plan depends on it. If he digs any more, it'll be all over." I bit my lip to stifle a curse. They were planning something, and I needed to uncover their intentions. I eased myself up and readied my phone, discreetly pointing the camera in their direction, fingers trembling with anticipation. As I started recording, the first figure moved, revealing a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. They were preparing to dig, not just for information, but for something I couldn't see yet. My mind raced. What could they possibly want to bury or retrieve? "Let's keep it quick," the second voice urged impatiently. "We don't have much time." Just then, a flashlight beam flickered to life, illuminating my hiding spot for a split second. I ducked deeper behind the barn, my breath caught in my throat. The light scanned the area, searching. "Hurry up," the man hissed. "What if he comes back?" Without thinking, I swiped the phone off record, hoping they wouldn't notice the light illuminating the screen. I needed to move, to think fast. They were going to expose me if I didn't act quick enough. But then, in a startling tone, the first man pulled something from the duffel bag, a shovel. That's when I lost it. I'm not about to let them dig up anything else of mine. I breathed under my breath, adrenaline kicking into overdrive. With surprising stealth, I crept closer, my adrenaline fueling every step. I was now within earshot, a few mere feet away from them. The shovel struck the ground with a dull thud, and I couldn't resist the urge any longer. Stop right there. I called out, revealing myself with the confidence of someone who had the surprise on their side. The two men whirled around, eyes wide with shock, their glances quickly darting between me and the shovel they had just plunged into the earth. Instead of retreating, the crowd shifted toward me, murmuring their support. Karen's right. This isn't how we handle disputes. We must work together, not tear each other apart. One elderly woman said, her hand shaking. No, listen. I pushed, adrenaline fueling me. This isn't just about differences. This is about stopping corruption before it consumes us all. If you don't act, this might be gone. Asterisk, asterisk, our homes. Asterisk, asterisk. In that moment, it seemed everyone in the room held their breath. I turned to Karen and pointed. You need to stop hiding behind your resources and face the truth. You're not just losing my farm. You're losing a sense of community. She opened her mouth, ready to retaliate, but the look on the faces around her faltered her confidence. Fewer people rallied behind her, eyes shifting in doubt, and I saw a facade beginning to crumble. Enough! Karen shouted, her voice echoing in desperation. You're making a grave mistake. But I held my ground. No, Karen, the mistake was giving you the power to dictate our lives. As the tension spiked, a sudden commotion broke through the back of the room. A rush, a flurry of something sent small objects flying. I turned to see a group from the HOA bursting in, their expressions grim. We're here to put a stop to this. One man shouted, pushing past scrambling chairs and startled neighbors. What's happening? Another neighbor gasped, confusion spreading. In that chaotic moment, I realized we had become part of something bigger. The HOA knew they were losing control, and they were here to intimidate us, to scare us back into submission. But as I looked across the room, I saw not only fear, but also grit and defiance in my neighbors' eyes. They were ready to stand beside me after all. Just as I felt despair creeping in, I remembered the spirit of the land, the kinship of our struggles. Who are you here to protect? Us or them? I bellowed, my voice echoing through the sudden silence. The man paused, looking around the gathering crowd, his resolve faltering. And while he hesitated, I caught a glimpse of a few familiar faces in the crowd, all people who had once been afraid to speak out. They turned toward me, resolve unyielding, and with that single moment, our shared strength soared through the room like a spark igniting kindling. The meeting hadn't just ignited confrontation, it had started a movement. The men from the HOA started to realize the sentiment swaying before them, and for the first time, Karen's smirk began to fade. You can't intimidate us anymore, one neighbor shouted, rallying a wave of shared rage against those who'd sought to control us. With every word echoing, my conviction deepened. We had come too far to let this opportunity elude us now. The tide hadn't just turned, it had crashed. Just as I prepared to speak again, a small commotion broke out at the door. A latecomer rushed inside, panting, his face pale. You won't believe what I just saw at a barn, he exclaimed. My stomach twisted in suspense. What do you mean? There are trucks everywhere. Heavy machinery. They are gearing up for something big. Gasps floated through the crowd, the urgency palpable. The HOA had called in reinforcements, planning to seize my land before we could take the matter to court. But we wouldn't let that happen. Let's go! I shouted, spirit unyielding. If they want to take our home, they'll have to face us first. The crowd surged as we rushed outside, hearts pounding as the reality of our fight materialized. The landscape around us transformed with our newfound courage. We weren't just protecting a piece of land, we were reclaiming our futures. As we neared the barn, flashes of bright light swirled from multiple angles, trucks blocking our path. Karen stood at the forefront, her expression twisted in fury. Amidst chaos, a realization struck, a personal revelation that stripped us of fear. This was our community. It was powerful, unswayed by intimidation, and here we stood, armed with truth. Together! I shouted, and for the first time, we united as a force that could not be broken. A powerful cheer rang out, echoing through the air as we faced Karen and her crew. But just when I thought the battle was ours, a shadow eclipsed the scene. In the distance, headlights flickered ominously as reinforcements arrived, a convoy rolling down the road toward us, a reminder that this confrontation wasn't just ours to claim. My heart raced as I squared my shoulders, refusing to retreat. Whatever they do, we stand as one, I declared, feeling every heart in the crowd beating as one. In that moment, the ground beneath our feet felt solid, the air around us igniting with shared purpose, and the light of our collective resolve shone brighter than any fear. And just like that, one truth broke through the chaos. No matter the outcome, we had already won. Together, we were unstoppable, and as the echoes of our cries filled the night, I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger fight, a fight for our home, for our identity, and for the very spirit of community that refused to be silenced. And Karen? Her days of control were numbered. Tonight, we weren't just standing on date. We were standing on the foundation of something far more powerful, a united force ready to rise and protect what was rightfully ours. Little did we know, we were just moments away from uncovering a revelation that would turn this battle into an unforgettable war, one that would change our lives and this community forever. "What are you doing here?" the first one shouted, his bravado slipping. "I could ask you the same thing," I retorted, my heart pounding against my ribs. "You're trespassing." Before they could say another word, I stepped forward, clutching the metal box tightly to my side. "You have a lot of explaining to do, and I think we both know this isn't going to end well for you." The second guy laughed, though it sounded hollow. "You think you know what's going on? You don't know anything." "I know enough," I said, trying to push through the rising tide of fear and doubt. "I've seen the plans. I've seen the documents. I know about your little scheme to tear apart this land for profit." They exchanged a glance of uncertainty, and I could see the flicker of hesitation in their eyes. Good. But before I could capitalize on their faltering confidence, the first man charged toward me. Instinct kicked in, and I pivoted, narrowly dodging him. In that instant of chaos, I aimed my phone to shine light on him, illuminating his expression for the world to see. "Help! He's attacking me!" I shouted, and the panic in my voice echoed into the night. Behind me, the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. I was seeing it clearly now. A small line of headlights cut through the darkness, and relief washed over me. It was Agent Lewis. Our eyes met across the chaos, and the two men realized too late that they were trapped. In that moment of clarity, they exchanged frantic glances before bolting back into the trees. "Get back here!" I yelled, anger and frustration boiling inside me. But it was too late. They were already slipping away into the night. As the headlights turned the corner onto the driveway, I felt a surge of hope and dread intertwine. Agent Lewis hopped out of the car. "What happened? I saw you running." There were two men. They were digging. I don't know what for, but they knew about the plans. They were part of something bigger. I stammered, breathless, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I need to see any evidence you have," he replied, urgency threading through his tone. I thrust the metal box toward him. "This is what I found. Contracts, blueprints, everything. They can't be allowed to keep this going unnoticed." Agent Lewis opened the box and began to sift through the documents, his expression hardening. "Good work. This could be the leverage we need to dismantle Karen's operation for good." But my heart sank at one thought. What if they weren't done? What if they returned, angrier and more desperate than ever? The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. With determination lighting a fire in my chest, I knew I wasn't going to back down. I would fight for every inch of land my grandfather had cultivated. There were secrets buried deep beneath this earth, and it was time to unearth them, for good. As I stood there, breathless and fueled by adrenaline, I watched Agent Lewis sift through the documents in the metal box I'd unearthed. His brow furrowed in concentration. The weight of my discoveries pressed down heavily on both of us. Each contract and blueprint whispered secrets that could unravel the web of deceit threatening my land. "Whoever did this was meticulous," he said, glancing up at me. "They didn't just want your farm. They aimed to control an entire community." My heart raced at the implications. The threat wasn't just personal. It was systemic. I had thought it was about pitting one neighbor against another, but it soon became clear that they were trying to uproot everyone for profit, disguising greed in the form of community development. "Do you think they'll come back?" I asked, my voice tinged with anxiety. Agent Lewis formed a tense line with his mouth, his eyes scanning our surroundings. I wouldn't doubt it. If they realize we're onto them, we could see aggressive tactics. They'll claw back any evidence they can. A memory flickered in my mind. The moment Karen had leaned in close, her eyes glinting with malice as she mentioned my land's dirt and how it was a safety concern for the community. It was an innocuous jab, masked in disdain, but now it felt like a revelation of her true intentions. "Let's turn this around," I declared, feeling a surge of courage. "Let's draw her out. If I can confront her, I might be able to shake her confidence. Make her reveal her hand." Lewis nodded, the spark of understanding igniting in his eyes. "That could work. But you should do it carefully. She doesn't seem like the type to back down gracefully." I took a deep breath, imagining the confrontation. I wouldn't just defend my land. I would expose her for who she truly was. I'll gather our neighbors. If they see me standing up, maybe they'll join in. Let's let Karen feel the pressure she's inflicted. We spent the next few hours rallying support, creating flyers, and planning a community meeting. We would discuss not just my case, but the potential threat looming over our neighborhood. The process filled me with hope, a flicker that maybe change wasn't just possible. It was imminent. As we sent out invites, I felt the momentum shift. One by one, neighbors reached out, providing their own stories of Karen's antics. There were complaints of shouts over lawns, whispers of passive-aggressive notes, and petty neighborhood politics that had been brewing silently for far too long. When the night of the meeting arrived, I felt as if I stood at a battlefield, ready to face the enemy. My heart raced as neighbors gathered, filling the community center with murmurs and the scent of baked goods. Just as I was about to step up to speak, I caught sight of an unmistakable figure slipping in through the back door, Karen. She strode in confidently, her usual airs of superiority intact, with an entourage of supporters trailing behind her, people who had likely been only partially informed of the real story. But this was my moment. "Thanks for coming," I announced, scanning the room as whispers muted. "We're here today not just to discuss a piece of land, but to stand against the manipulation threatening our community." Karen stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with defiance. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You're making a scene over nothing." A murmur erupted, and I sensed the shifting loyalty in the room. "It's not nothing," I countered, raising the documents from the metal box. "This is proof of a plot against our homes, our livelihoods. They're using underhanded tactics to seize our land." Gasps filled the air, and I continued. "We've all faced their criticism and mockery, but it's time we band together. They're not just after my farm. They want to control our entire community." "But what do we do?" someone asked from the back, uncertainty lingering in their voice. "Expose them," I replied firmly. "Let's band together, document their actions, and share our stories. If we stand united, they can't silence us." Karen stepped forward, panic creeping into her tone. "This is slander, and you'll regret it. You're going to ruin this neighborhood."